Have you set yourself up for financial independence? We sure hope so. If not, we're going to help you figure that out in this video. My name is Carmen.
And I'm Darius. And what we're going to be discussing is assets that you need to have for life. Not just a small period of time, not just some short-term asset in which you'll make money from it, flip it, and you're done with it. I'm talking about for life.
Yeah, we need to get you some good running shoes because you're going to be running a marathon. This is not a sprint. So let's jump right into the video. And the very first point that we want to make sure that you understand from an asset standpoint is you need to have cash.
Yes.
You need to have liquid cash available. So that is going to give you the wherewithal, the power to invest, create cash flow, do whatever you need. You're always going to need some sort of capital to create cash flow.
Yeah.
Now, let's be clear. That cash doesn't always have to come from you, ladies and gentlemen. You need to have access to pools of funds. It can be yourself, or you can have access to other pools of funds where you can leverage that cash to create cash flow.
Right. Now, traditionally, when people say cash, what they would say is like a savings account, because your savings account is what you'll use to invest. But at Wealth Nation, we're a little different. We like to use life insurance because before you say anything, the one thing that is guaranteed is that you will die.
And pay taxes.
Everybody's going to die. Taxes, not so much, but everybody's going to die. Now, what happens when you have a life insurance policy that is created correctly? Well, all insurance policies are created correctly because you can only create it within the limits that the insurance company allows.
They're all supposed to serve some sort of purpose.
Exactly. But one thing is you're guaranteed to die at some point, and what you need is to have some permanent life insurance. That's an asset that you need to have for the rest of your life. Now, the thing is you don't have to wait until you die to use that life insurance policy, because you can use those funds while you are living to do investments that make money, buy other assets that make money.
Exactly.
Now,
So when we talk about cash, for us, when we're thinking about asset classes, if we were to look at cash as one of them, the subheader underneath cash for us would be whole life insurance policies, and whole life insurance policies that are considered overfunded, meaning we're dumping a ton of cash into this so that we can leverage this pool of funds for investing, for whatever it is that we want to do, so that we can further our financial goals.
Right.
And the reason why we put our cash in this asset is because it's going to provide a guaranteed rate of return for us, and it's also going to protect our family in the event we do pass.
Right. And it fits in this asset class because it's very similar to a savings account. The only difference is when you use the funds from your life insurance policy, when you borrow those funds, you still continue to earn interest as if those funds are still there. You can't do that with your savings account, and your savings account also does not provide you with a death benefit, which you are guaranteed to use at some point. Now, the next thing that we want to move on to is equity. Beyonce put us on this a long time ago, saying to
pay me in equity.
So
what was that? Oh, okay, all right,
business.
got you, Beyonce.
You need to own some type of business where it's an asset that you continue to earn money from. And the reason why owning business is so important is, let's go back to all the stimulus checks that we received. Now I'm gonna bring it on home, because the stimulus checks that we received, we thought that was for us. No, it wasn't for us. It was for us to go and spend that money. And when we spend that money, we're giving it to a business.
Where is it going back to?
Exactly. The stimulus check is for businesses, because we screwed up before when we gave stimulus packages directly to these large companies. Said, nah, we're just going to give it straight to the people.
We'll give it to the people, and then it'll magically end up back in the hands of the businesses.
Right. So was your business one of those ones that benefited from the stimulus check that we received? Well, if you own a business, if you had ownership in a business, yes. But if not, you just spent the money and you're looking around now, where is the money? So
where did it go?
Yeah. So what you want to do is make sure that you also have an equity asset. Some type of business,
some equity position. Now, okay, Wealth Nation, we need to pump our brakes real quick. Hold on, I'm just going to pump our brakes for 2 seconds.
While we're pumping our brakes, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to be notified when we post new videos.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, so here's why I want to pump our brakes, is because I realize we're saying assets, but we don't want to talk over anyone's head. What is an asset, and what does that mean to you, and why is it important? An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. That simple. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. Go ahead, your turn. Say it. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. On the contrary, a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So what do you currently possess that you think is an asset that is a liability? Your home. Oh, excuse me. I wasn't sure if anybody heard that. But for those of you who are living in your home and you're thinking that this is an asset, is it putting money in your pocket or is it taking money out? That's for you to determine.
Right. So ownership of a home is, or a real estate property or physical space is really important when it comes to having another form or another asset.
Which is what we think, that the next asset class should absolutely be real estate, but you need to be positioned in real estate for it to be an asset and not a liability.
Right.
So you need to make sure that whichever, and Darius just used a word, he said ownership. Did you hear that? Ownership is different than I got a mortgage note. Right. That's a completely different conversation.
You don't own it yet because you don't have the title.
Yeah, exactly. So you're renting it, really. You're renting the space. So when
if you think you own it, miss a payment. Let's see what happens. You'll find out real quick that you don't own that house that you have a mortgage on.
Same with your car. That's why I said I just want to challenge you to think about, what are these things that I think are assets, but maybe they're actually liabilities. And that's why I wanted to break it down in that simple form. Liabilities take money out, assets put money in. So going back to the next asset class, the third asset class that we're talking about, like we said, it's real estate. So you need to determine what position in real estate are you? Is this a liability or is this an asset? And if it's a liability, you need to figure out how to turn your real estate property or whichever commercial space, whatever it is, into an asset where it's paying you money.
Right.
And some of us may need to swallow that hard pill and realize that maybe we're way over leveraged and we're in this big, beautiful, amazing home, but it's costing us way too much money and it's actually bleeding money, as opposed to the opposite where we're cash flowing.
Yeah, you may have houses too much house for you and you need to downsize.
So just think about this. Like we said, that the first asset class is cash. You need to be able to have cash. And if you are spread too thin in liabilities, that's taking away from your cash, isn't it?
Your ability to save money so that you can invest, because remember, assets put money into your pocket.
We talked about equity meaning in a business. I wanted to touch on that one more time too, because same thing with the house, is that bleeding you dry? Is your business bleeding you dry as well? Because we know so many business owners that aren't cash flowing. We know so many business owners that are still in debt and trying to get out of debt. So if that's the case, you immediately need to figure out how to flip your business around so it can start cash flowing for you. And if it's not, stop holding on to it, because it's never about continuing to lose money. Get out of that insanity crisis.
Right. And not just business in a traditional sense where you have a brick and mortar, but also online businesses.
Yeah.
Because as we made a huge transition back in 2020 of not actually physically meeting in person, online businesses kind of skyrocketed because of the necessity for it to do so. So when we talk about business, we're just talking about online business, we're talking about traditional businesses, we're talking about whatever business, legal business that you can think of that's putting money into your pocket. That's the type of equity or business ownership that we're talking about as far as an asset class. Yeah.
And then the next asset class we want to talk about is, consider it fixed income, whatever you want to call it.
Mailbox money.
Mailbox money.
And this is a page out of the banks, because what we think are liabilities to us are assets to the banks. And when we
give us an example.
An example of a liability to us would be a loan. Because we went to the bank and borrowed that money from the bank, and now we have to pay that money back. But to the bank, that's an asset. So lending money is an asset. And the reason why I think this type of fixed income is so important is because it takes us all the way back to the source of where the money comes from. And if you can trace money back to its source, one thing we'll find is that it's a pool of money that's just the banks that they just control, and they charge us to have access to it. But banks make the most money of all the businesses. So let's copy exactly what they're doing. And banks don't just do lending to individuals, they lend on projects. Banks lend on pretty much everything. There's a huge opportunity for us to just take a page or two out of the bank's book and make sure it works in our favor.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to say is that if you realize that some of the stuff that we talked about, like we're not talking about stocks, we're not talking about gold and silver, we're just talking about tangible things that you can do right now. And not that gold and silver or stocks isn't tangible, but we're just saying, like, let's look high level and see what are the most wealthiest businesses doing at the end of the day. And we're just going to copy a note from their book. So we don't have to go study all these other things. Let's just figure out, okay, if they're lending money, let's go lend money. And so for us, that's what we consider mailbox money, because who do you know that does not have a loan on something? A car, a house, your credit cards, personal loans, whatever it is. Like, literally, think about that. Take a moment. Who do you know?
That has borrowed money. Everybody has borrowed money.
Yeah, everybody has borrowed money. Ching, ching. That means you have an opportunity to come up. So if you have, what was that first asset class we said?
Cash.
If you have cash, guess where you can put it? In that fixed income space, where now you can start lending money and you can now have a different sense of control with your income. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is when you think about cash, when we talk about equity, when we talk about fixed income, and we talk about real estate, all of these things you have control over as long as you own that asset class. Right. So when we talk about financial independence, true financial independence comes from control. We're never going to have or achieve financial independence if we are always dependent on someone else.
Right. And we're never going to tell you to do something that we haven't done ourselves. So commodities is another asset class, but we don't have any commodities. We don't have any gold, silver, wheat, oil, none of that stuff. So we can't recommend you do that because we don't have it ourselves. But it is another asset class that you can do your research on. And if that's something that interests you, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should do exactly what it is that you are most comfortable with. For us, these are the things that we're most comfortable with because this is the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And so we recognize that we can multiply in folds and to be able to accomplish the financial goals and do exactly what it is that we want to do.
Right. Now, the reason why we broke down asset classes instead of investments is because you need to diversify across multiple assets. A lot of people think about diversification is, let's take real estate as an asset. There's so many different types of real estate that you can do single family, you can do commercial, you can do REITs, you can do multifamily. Yes, those are different types of real estates, and what people think is that they are diversified across this particular asset. But what happens when something happens in the real estate market, in that market? Well, you have a problem. It's the same thing when it comes to stocks. Stocks, people say that they have diversification across a variety of different stocks and companies. But what we see is that the stock market goes down sometimes together.
Yeah.
And you can look at any asset class and see that. The point that we're trying to make is that you need to be diversified across different asset classes, because what happens in our economy is not all the assets go down at once. What happens is when one go down, another goes up. For example, with inflation, the value of cash will go down, but then we'll see that commodities go up. The price of gold goes up. So if we want to be successful, if we want to continue to earn money regardless of what the market is doing, we need to have diversification, not just in one asset, but across multiple asset classes.
Very good point. I mean, I feel like that was the meat and potatoes of the video right there. We should have led with that. Thank you, Darius. And also definitely click on the link below and join the Wealth Nation if you are interested in creating an asset class, specifically cash, which is what we always talk about, whole life insurance, so that you can become your own source of financing and control more of the money that you can then start lending and create a lending company. Why not?
There you go.
And also comment below. Let us know what you all are invested in. Assets, ladies and gentlemen. We want to make sure assets. What are the different asset classes that you are investing in?
Right now, we talk a lot about life insurance on this channel because we think cash is the foundation of how you are able to invest in other asset classes, and within those asset classes, the investments. So what we like to do is start with the foundation of cash and life insurance. But what is up to you is how you go about positioning yourselves in each one of these asset classes. The reason why we're not giving you a specific thing outside of life insurance is because it's totally up to you. There's 1,000,001 ways to make money in this economy. There's a huge amount of opportunities out there for us. the most important thing that we need to do is take action on at least 4 of those things.
Yeah, and well, when you say take action, I want to be specific, because a lot of people will go, oh my God, I need to start a whole life insurance policy. I need to go buy a house. I need to go do this, that, and the other. There's levels to this, so you need to breathe for a moment. Right now, you need to figure out which asset class can you get involved with. Tomorrow, yesterday, whatever it is, so that you can actually start.
Or
and
one that you already have, so you can be more efficient with the one you already have.
Yeah, and just focus on that. Don't feel like you have to get involved in everything so quickly. You have to build to this, and be okay knowing that you're going to build. This is all about wealth building, and it's not going to happen overnight. So this is going to take time. It's going to be a process, and sometimes you got to get your cash in order so that you can start lending, so that you can start investing in real estate, so that you can start doing any other thing that you think about when we talk about other asset classes that are out there. So always make sure, first and foremost, that your cash is straight, that you got pool of funds on hand and on deck, and that you're able to leverage them at your disposal and deploy them as you see fit.
Right. Now, just one quick thing is, for example, Carmen mentioned you're not going in debt. You have your cash taken care of. The most important thing is, don't go in debt to get an asset, because what may happen, what if that asset or investment goes down? Where do you get your funds from to make sure you maintain your way of life, your traditional way of life, without going further and further in debt? Because debt is something that can be piled on top of you until the fact that you can't even see the top from where you are. So you have to make sure, like Carmen said, make sure that you have a solid foundation. Your foundation cannot be you looking up at it. You can't look up at your foundation. You cannot look up at your foundation.
If you do, you got a problem.
You have a huge problem. So make sure you have a solid foundation. You're starting at ground level, and you're building on top of a solid foundation.
Now, I'm also going to speak to some of our creative investors out there, because some of them will be like, wait, Darius, I do it all the time. And again, there's levels to this.
Yeah, how long?
That there is levels to this. For our creative investors who understand how to leverage debt to make money, we're not talking to you. Congratulations, you already know what to do. We're talking about those people who are just getting started and maybe not comfortable with moving money the way our creative investors do. You got to have a solid foundation.
Yes.
That's what we always recommend. And just make sure that you understand how the rules are played. We always talk about that on the Wealth Nation channel. And just making sure you're always putting yourself in the best position to make money.
Right. So if you want to learn more information about life insurance and just overall personal finance, then check out our next video, where we'll give you some pointers on different online businesses that you can create passive income.
And don't forget to own your own lifestyle,
or someone else will.